begin. Do we have a quorum today?
We do.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to start the meeting. It's approximately 9:08 a.m., January 23rd, 2025. This is our first of 4 meetings for 2025. I welcome everyone to the meeting today. I would like the board to review the minutes of our October 24th, 2024 meeting, and if we could get a motion to pass.
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Is that Aaron, the motion?
Aaron Nakbar.
Thank you, Aaron. We have a motion. Do we have a second? And
I'll second that, Chuck. That's Peter Alfieri.
thanks, Peter. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so moved. Thank you, everybody. Okay, on to our agenda today. Has everybody had a chance to review the complaint status report provided by the department?
Yes.
Yes.
As you can tell, it's pretty large. The department's been very busy.
Yeah, it's a good report. I'll make a motion to accept the report as written.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Who made the motion?
Peter Alfieri.
Thanks, Peter. Who made the second?
Jay.
Jay. Thanks, Jay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it sounds unanimous. So good. We're all set there. So that's passed. All right. That's quite an interesting list of complaints. Hard work by the department there. I want to make a note of that to Janita and the crew, Pam Brown's crew, Jack Cardona for a great job there. Next, we're going to move on to the old business, which will be the discussion on well drilling regulations in regards to glycol for geothermal. Is there a Mark Stone and a Jeff Howard at the meeting today, please?
This is Mark Stone. I'm here.
Is there a Jeff Howard in attendance as well?
I do not see Jeff on the meeting.
Okay, all right. So having said that, let's move on. Mark, would you like to give us a little talk in reference to what you are asking the board for today?
Sure. I don't know if the board remembers, I was at the meeting in November. So I had reached out to the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection with regard to a detoxified ethylene glycol for geothermal applications. It's a patented technology that my company Hydrotech developed many years ago for the food and beverage industry. But over the last year, at least in the United States, in the UK, we've been using this product for geothermal wells for about 15 years now. But in the last year, we've had a lot of interest from geothermal installers, most recently a company called Dandelion Energy, who's based in New York. And so they reached out to us and wanted to use this detoxified ethylene glycol. The reason primarily is twofold. One is it has better thermal efficiency than standard propylene glycol, and it's less costly, certainly, and you need less of it to achieve the same freeze protection. So there are many reasons that they were interested in that. But when they approached the state of New York, New York's the only thing that in their regulations were food safe propylene glycol. So I approached that organization in New York called NYSERDA and submitted all the documentation, information about the technology. And last year, just before the holidays, they approved this product, DTX, we call it, detoxified ethylene glycol. I've approached Massachusetts as well because Dandelion Energy operates in Massachusetts as well as in Connecticut. Massachusetts, I believe, will approve in probably in the next 60 days or something. I'm working with their hydrologists now. Jeff Howard from your organization, or not, well, from the state of Connecticut, he and I have been trading emails. He reached out to Jeff Heyman, who's the director of the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. They are going to be putting this product in their 2025 guide as an approved geothermal working fluid. The fluid that I'm asking for an approval for has an NSF approval for incidental food contact. It has been tested by the EPA, and it also has an FDA approval as well. So what I'm asking for is an approval for this fluid to be added to the regulations within the state of Connecticut. So sorry to ramble on, but that's kind of a little bit of what I'm, what the history that's happened over the last 60 days.
Okay, great. And I appreciate that, Mark, because those are my concerns as well, amongst others. National Sanitation Foundation, you've got the documentation, EPA and the FDA. You have all those documents from them stating it's safe to use in groundwater?
No, I don't have it safe to use in groundwater. I have it safe that it is a non-toxic formulation, because if you look at the guidelines, if you look at the federal standards, EPA, they actually allow the use of just ethylene glycol, ethanol, methanol, propylene glycol. It is individual states that have taken it upon themselves to write regulations within their state. And typically all they call out is a food grade, food safe propylene glycol. This is food safe propylene glycol. There are no, if you look at the EPA standards, they really don't call out approved geothermal working fluids. They list of materials, working fluids that can be used in geothermal applications. It's so if you're looking, if the classification is food safe, this product meets that criteria. Matter of fact, the state of Wisconsin, they reached out to me yesterday. So they are actually going to approve this because it has an NSF food certificate saying that it's safe for incidental food contact. The reality is that this product is probably safer than what you're currently using, because ethylene glycol does readily biodegrade. It actually breaks down faster than propylene glycol in air, soil, and water. You need less of it, so there'll be less in the cooling loop itself. So it's really a safe product, and it's.
Can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay. You said the state of, what was that, Wisconsin?
Yeah. So I reached out to a gentleman, Aaron. I forgot Aaron's last name, but I could get it for you, because a large geothermal company out there found out about us, and they wanted. So I reached out to. He's a hydrologist for the state of Wisconsin. We talked, and I submitted the information, the NF certificate, and some other documentation to him. And right away he said, well, we just actually had a meeting that we're going to, anything that is NSF approved, food safe glycol, will not be automatically grandfathered in terms of a working fluid for that particular state. With regard to New York, NYSERDA, they actually took.
Mark, you're kind of getting away from me. I haven't finished my question.
Okay, sorry.
There was the state of Wisconsin. What department within the state of Wisconsin was in charge of okaying this? Was it an environmental protection agency? Was it a Department of Health within the state? Was it the a governing body, a legislature?
No,
Can you let me know who in the state of Wisconsin approved this method for the group?
This is the groundwater department within there. I can certainly send John or Jeff a link to the department there. Just in addition to that, NYSERDA, just I want to be clear about that. Not only did they approve pool flow DTX, they actually approved, they took it a step further and approved ethylene glycol, because there are many projects in New York that are actually commercial projects that are geothermal that are using ethylene glycol in the past. So although we did submit the documentation that it is a non-toxic ethylene glycol, they took it a step further. So in the state of New York, they're now allowing the use of ethylene glycol in geothermal wells.
Now, have you brought this to the Department of Environmental Protection in Connecticut? I believe you have. You've also brought it to the Department of Health. And do you have any documentation of their approval in Connecticut for this product as well?
No, I've as nicely as I can say this, they've kind of been pushing me off to a new department. I have approached the DEP, Jeff Howard. I've approached the Department of Public Health, and they have kind of pushed me in your direction. So I'm not really sure who has the authority to approve. I mean, it would seem to me that whoever wrote the regulations with regard to the working fluids would have the authority to say yes or no, but that's not for me to say, certainly.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
We have, just so you know, when you're ready, we have Peter Alfieri and then Jay Moore that have their hands up with questions as well.
Okay, let's start with Jay Moore, please.
Hi, good morning, Jay Moore. So you say that it has incidental contact with food, like incidental. All right, I take that as a small, just a small, minute amount coming in contact with the food. My concern would be is if you had a breach in the system underground and somebody had a potable well, or you were near a pond or a lake or something to that effect, would it affect aquatic animals? Would it, how would it affect the individual's potable water well? Would it be contaminated? Would they have to, would you be able to re-drill another well if it was contaminated? There's a lot of questions I have on that. I've also, have reached out to, I'm part of Mechanical Contractors Association, which has over 100 contractors associated with it. And I've reached out to them, asked them if they've had any dealings with this product or had any input on it. And the consensus is no, and some other information that they provided to me. But my questions are, you say incidental. What does that mean, incidental? Could you elaborate on that?
Well, the way the NSF, which used to be part of the FDA, defines incidental is that, let's say it's a large refrigerated warehouse and there's a chilled water system, and that system is compromised, and that warehouse is storing fresh vegetables, and that heat transfer fluid, in this case detoxified ethylene glycol, were to spray on there, that would be an incidental food contact. I would just go back to your well comment. If what you're using now, there was a leak and it contaminated a well, propylene glycol, this product wouldn't be any different. They're both glycols. One is a longer molecule chain. They're both non-toxic. The one that we're talking about today actually breaks down faster than the environment than what you're currently using, which is propylene glycol. Usually it's food grade propylene glycol. This is no different than that. And I would just say with regard to the mechanical contractors, some of the largest companies in the world are using this product. Nestle Foods, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo. It's used in, Lockheed Martin uses in the flight suits that pilot for the F-35 Lightning. This fluid is circulating around the pilot's jacket. It's used in an open heart device called Mr. Frosty. I can't think of a more sensitive environment than an operating room. And this is the fluid that uses to cool the blood when the surgeon's operating. So there's some very sensitive applications around there. So it really is no different than what you're using now, other than in the past, nobody would consider this because ethylene glycol, which is in your antifreeze in your automobile, is generally regarded as toxic. And Consumer Product Safety Division regulates anything that has greater than 10%. We've done EPA studies with this. We've done LD50. We've done human tissue testing to demonstrate the efficacy of the product. So it's just, you probably have not heard about it much because we opened this facility in Connecticut about 2.5 years ago. We've been in the UK for 30 years. So this product's used all through Europe, and geothermal and food processing, data centers, and breweries, cannabis cultivation. It really is a wide swath. So we have just new to the US with regard to that, but we are getting some traction. There's several plants that we have done already in the US over the last 2 years, companies that you would recognize, certainly.
What effect, if it was to breach near a body of water, what effect would it have on aquatics?
It would the same effect of propylene glycol. Aquatic life is, as you probably already know, is very sensitive. If you spilled a tanker truck full of Pepsi in a pond, it would have an effect on aquatic life. So if you looked at the aquatic performance of propylene versus ethylene, they're really not much different at all.
Okay.
Jay, thank you. Pete Alfieri, please.
Mr. Chairman, I don't feel comfortable making any kind of decision on this product unless we have somebody from the Department of Environmental Protection or DEEP or however they say their title is now on board with this. I don't have any expertise in this field. I have an idea what they're talking about. I think we've used it or seen it or heard about it before, but I just don't feel comfortable making a decision on this until we have somebody on board. I don't want to waste this guy's time, Mark's time here, but coming to us first, I don't believe was the right way to go. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we
Great.
have Aaron has a question as well.
Thank you. Aaron.
I just like to say I did read through an awful lot of the documentation for this product. It is approved in a few places that are fairly sensitive with groundwater. It has the NSF certification, but it is different. And I am not 100% sure of I believe what I was taught was if we had a propylene glycol fluid leak into a body or into a well, it could be filtered with carbon and resin and effectively treat the situation. My short, brief research, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stone, is that the only way to remove the ethylene glycol products is through distillation of the water, which would be very difficult. But I'm not a chemist or a scientist, and to go along with what Peter has brought up, the health department, I believe, has the ultimate say in what fluids can and cannot be approved for use in a ground source geothermal loop.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I started with the health department and started with the DEP, but they have pushed me in your direction.
Well, we have a difficult dual governance here for a lot of things between the health department and consumer protection, and it bounces back and forth. And so I think we would need a general consensus from all of us. I am personally not against this fluid. It has its benefits that I read through, but I would be more comfortable with other departments supporting it.
And Mr. Stone, just to interject for a second, we have had discussions on this, and we are awaiting a conversation with DPH. There has been some communication, but we have not had an official meeting on this yet. And Mr. Chair, we have Jay Moore that has a question.
Yeah. Hi, Jay Morgan. I just I wanted to Aaron's what he stated about, how it was if it came in contact with someone's well, how it is filtered out. Is that a true statement? It needs to be distilled?
No, it filters the same way as propylene glycol. You're talking, they're both diols. This is no different than that because the constituents that we mix with ethylene glycol to neutralize the toxic. Let me just step back. Ethylene glycol, as it sits, is actually non-toxic. It is when an animal or human being were to ingest it, we form toxic metabolites. So we have found a way to mix, in this case, propylene glycol, which you're already using, with the ethylene glycol. And that actually the ethylene glycol takes on the properties. They can never be separated. The only way you could separate the two would be through a distillation process, which is not going to happen obviously in an underground environment. But if it got into a well, you could filter through a carbon filter just like you would with propylene glycol. But I would just to step back for a second. I agree with you. I think probably the Department of Environmental Protection or the Department of Public Health should sign off on this as well. And that's where I had started. And I know that John mentioned that they're having conversations. I'm merely here just to answer questions, certainly.
Thank you.
Mark, this is Chairman Appleby, and I appreciate that. We do with technology changes today, and health and safety at its premium, the plumbing board is to make sure that the groundwater is safe in Connecticut. So we appreciate you coming to this meeting today to explain that. I feel personally that this should be, and we are working, I've asked prior to this meeting for input from DEP, Connecticut, and the Department of Health. We're a plumbing board. We're not scientists. We don't have hydrologists working on our board here. We have a well driller of record, Mr. Aaron Akbar. But I feel as though we'd like to hear more. I would like to hear more from DEP's stand on this environmental change and the and the Connecticut Department of Health, and Jeff Hammond out there in IGSPA. If he's going to add this to the manual that we use to take the test in Connecticut for the for training for geothermal, I'd like to see those documents from IGSPA as well, maybe in your next presentation, to see what he has shown, and perhaps in other states, because that's a pretty big organization, as you know. I mean, that's the Bible, right, for geothermal. So I'd like to learn more about that. So I think, you know, this time today was important for us to understand a little bit more about the product. However, you know, at this point, I think we're going to wait to hear from DEP and Department of Health before, you know, we make any determination further.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
we have Jay Moore that has a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Jay, please.
A couple more. We've spoken specifically about geothermal systems. Is there an intention to use this within a building through chilled water systems and heating water?
Yes, it already is being used in all over the country. Large projects in New York City, most definitely.
Okay. Now, if you were, say you had an existing system that was designed to use propylene glycol and you interjected this into it, would it change flow rates, GPMs? Would it change the capacity of the pumps that were in the existing building? Would it have corrosiveness to the existing components, to the equipment, to the piping? What would be the change to that?
Well, typically, if it's a new system and you're starting with this, well, let's just step back. Because the properties of this product are superior to what propylene glycol in terms of its viscosity and thermal conductivity, there is actually an opportunity to shrink the overall size of the cooling system. But to your point, Jay, if it's an existing system, you know, typically, if it's an existing system, they want to remediate it. They're draining the system out, cleaning the system. They put this product in there. It's not, you know, it may, it would require less energy to pump this, depending on the geometry of the plumbing in the system. So a lot of companies, a lot of mechanical contractors are looking at this product as well. One is a way to save money, but also to improve reduction of energy costs and whatever the facility is, whatever they're doing, whether they're making coffee creamers, whatever that is. So there is, and so we work with, you know, we're part of the ASHRAE group. So there's 60,000 engineers as well as MCA. So we work with these folks to understand the technology. At the end of the day, whether that's a mechanical engineer or a chemical engineer, they're really just looking at the properties of the fluid. In this case, this product takes on the properties of ethylene glycol, even though it's a detoxant of ethylene glycol. And most engineers would prefer.
One of the concerns that were brought to me was if this is to be utilized within an existing system, if the existing system that was put in long time ago has propylene glycol in it, and for some reason this was introduced unknowingly by mistake, what effect would it have on existing equipment? Would seals blow on pumps? What would be the effect on the equipment if the two, I understand it said they can be combined together without any problem, but what effect does it have on working and moving components, pumping systems, valves, gaskets, things of that nature?
Yeah, this product meets all the same ASTM standards as what they're currently using now. Whether it's whether it's engineered polymers, all the dissimilar metals, the elastomers, we use the same inhibitor packages. You know, they're maybe manufactured by different manufacturers, certainly, as what you're using now, whether it's an inorganic or organic acid. And I would just go back to your question. Hold on one second. Ben's trying to call me. I would go back to your question about mixing it. We really don't want people to take something that was originally filled with an inhibited propylene glycol and just arbitrarily add our product to it. Will it mix? Yes, it will make. Will it cause damage? No. But what I would say is inhibitor packages are slightly different. So who knows what was in there? And we don't want to inherit a bad system. But if by accident they mix it, it's not going to damage the pump seals or any of the hardware and everything. But I would also advise those people, once they realize that they've mixed these two chemistries, that they're going to have to remediate the system at some point.
Okay, that was a concern of some of the contractors I spoke with. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. What I would say is maybe, I don't know if it's John or what you guys can talk amongst yourselves in terms of the health department and Department of Environmental Protection. Just going back to the International Ground Source, right now they're working on the guide. We are working on some documentation for the guide in terms of the properties, so that the installers understand how the technology is and all the performance properties. So I would imagine that guide will come out later this year based on my comments from Jeff. I actually have a webinar that I'm doing next month for the Ground Source Heat, and I'll be at the Ground Source show in March as well. We have an exhibit there. So, this will evolve over the next couple of months. And like I said, we're just here to provide, obviously we'd like an approval sometime, but we understand that you folks may want to reach out to the other two departments to get their buy-in as well.
Mark, well, I got you on there. Chuck Appleby, chairman here again. Jeff Hammond is going to release a lot of this information towards the end of the part of this year for ICSPA. And are they talking about it in their training currently nationally with Water Furnace and all these other companies that are involved with ICSPA on training of their geothermal products? Where does that stand with the industry? These, the boxes themselves.
Well, I would just say I certainly don't want to speak for Jeff. The only thing I would say is that he has asked me to do a webinar next month because most of the installers haven't heard of the product, if I'm being honest. Jeff got the technology pretty quickly, and one of his concerns was that a lot of the installers out there aren't even using propylene glycol. They may be using ethanol or methanol, which, as you folks probably know, can be very volatile. So from a safety, and when he speaks with some of these installers, they pretty much just point that it's a lower cost than propylene glycol. So when he read about the technology, he liked it. He liked the idea of having an alternative that was less costly and safer for these particular type of applications. So I don't know what his plans are. That would probably be a question you might want to pose to him. But he did say that he's rewriting the guide, and this product will be in there as an approved product. But he wants to give as much information to the installers or to that industry about the product. As I said, we'll be doing a town hall meeting next month, and then there's the annual conference for the Ground Source Heat organization in March, I believe in Illinois, and we will have a small exhibit there as well. So, but I don't certainly want to speak for him, so you might want to just pose those questions to him, certainly.
Yeah, I try to stay up on this. So that webinar, I'm not a member of ICSPA at this time, so if that webinar is only going to be for members for them, I would like to participate in that webinar just to listen in further this conversation down the road. As you know, a lot of states in the country do not offer geothermal drilling license categories as of yet. We're one of very few, and training is at its at this board level, it's got to be at its best, and that's why we created this. So we want to make sure going forward that we know what's going on. So if you could include me in that webinar, you have my email address, or I can get that to you for that webinar.
Mark, if you could just forward it to me, and I'll forward it to the chairperson.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I would also just, for the folks that may not have been on that email chain with Jeff Howard and John, Mesner. There are comments on that email chain from Jeff Heyman with regard to this technology, and when Jeff Howard had reached out to him. So I don't know if John or whoever can make that email chain available to the folks on the plumbing board who might have an interest in reading that.
And Mr. Chair, we have Vinnie Valenti with a question.
Good morning. You mentioned the product is safe for incidental food contact, but let's say we had an industrial system in a food warehouse and this product sprayed on some pallets of apples. What should be done with those apples?
Those apples should be thrown away just as the same as if you sprayed propylene glycol. Even propylene glycol in high enough concentrations can be toxic. I mean, I sit on the ASTM board for engine coolants, and if you listen to people smarter than me, PhD chemists would say the same thing. People get a generally a safe feeling by the use of propylene glycol, and it is safe, but in high enough concentrations, you don't want to be ingesting propylene glycol as well. So whether propylene glycol were to spray on the apples or this product, you need to throw that product away.
Right. I think everybody in the world is smarter than me. And I, washed my hair with propylene glycol and all sorts of products in the kitchen, and the bathroom have propylene glycol. I don't see anything with any form of ethylene glycol. And as you say, if this contacts something for human consumption, that should be thrown away. Again, it just speaks to our overall concern that if this contacts potable water, we can't throw that water away. And that's my concern.
No, I appreciate that. And if we were talking about ethylene glycol, I would share that concern, but because this is a detoxified ethylene glycol, so this product has been detoxified through this process, it is as safe as ethylene glycol.
Not safe enough to eat on an apple.
No more than propylene glycol. You could eat, if this sprayed on, if a small amount sprayed on an apple, you could eat this. It might make you sick to your stomach, but if you sprayed enough propylene glycol on an apple, it might make you sick to your stomach as well.
Right. Well, again, I'm, I understand the mechanical advantages and the viscosity, and if you use it as a drop-in, you mentioned some other concerns with, cleaning the internals of the piping, and I agree that I don't see any damage to equipment, and maybe even can be softer on it because you're not pushing such hard viscous liquid and using higher pressures. But something not fit for human consumption, whether it's 0.1% or 10% or whatever it may be, is not fit for human consumption. And one of the overall guidance we have here, which, it's not something written on a stone tablet there at DCP, is that we have to protect the potable drinking water supply for the people in Connecticut. That is probably, I don't think, few things more important than what we do here is to protect the potable water supply. And I'm not, with what I read, I'm reading some industry back padding, but I'm not seeing, real raw data and what these other states have gone through. And I would agree with the other folks that with deep in public health, there has to be buy-in from them first, because I would be a hard no at this point, just to stay on the side of caution. Not anything against the product. I see its mechanical advantages. I think ethylene is great inside an industrial setting. There's no food product or cosmetic involved. But I'm very, very concerned about what happens if this comes in contact with potable water.
And Mr. Chair, we have Jay Moore and then followed by Aaron Nachbar.
Let's start with Aaron Nachbar.
Yeah, go ahead. Start with Aaron.
Just to point out that propylene is in all kinds of foods and soft serve ice cream and soft drinks and baked goods. And we ingest it all the time in processed foods. I don't believe, from my reading on this, product that it is any different in toxicity than the propylene we're already using. Just to throw it out there. I understand your concern with potable water, but we've already approved essentially the same thing.
No, I want to be clear.
yeah.
This product is not in shampoos and food products and is not approved for human consumption.
Not this ethylene glycol, but propylene glycol.
I understand that, but we're dealing with some content, whether it's a mix of propylene and ethylene or detoxified. You're not going to find this in your Twinkies.
Not yet. I'm sure they'll find a way.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, in many of the states that we deal with have toxicologists. I mean, because that's really because if you look at the testing that we've done, the EPA tests lethal dose, LD50, and it established a lethal dose of a particular substance would be lethal to someone to ingest it. We've done all of it testing with this detoxified ethylene glycol, and it is generally regarded as a non-toxic formulation. It's the same as propylene glycol. And I understand your concern because, I mean, obviously we've all been taught that ethylene glycol, if it spills on a driveway and a cat or a dog were to lap it up, it could be fatal. And I share that concern, but this product is a detoxified ethylene glycol that's went through rigorous testing. What I would say is that I agree with you. I think the Board of Health and the Department of Environmental Protection should weigh in on this and look at the data. And we're happy to provide our DTX dossier, all of our LD50 testing for the EPA, and then they can make an informed decision. I mean, I would say NSF has a team of toxicologists, chemists who reviewed all the data as well as our formulation. And I can say this: they did not get an NSF. This is the only ethylene glycol product in the world that has an NSF approval. So that's what I would just put that out there.
Okay, we have Jay Moore.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody's just throwing questions. I'm just going to make a motion to deny at this point for approval based on everyone's apprehension, some lack of data, like toxicology, reports, and just the lack of information that we have on it. Also based on some apprehensions of multiple mechanical contractors I spoke with. So that's my motion to deny at this point until we could come back and have some input from some people that are from a health department, from an environmental department. Maybe we could see these, someone could disseminate the toxicology reports to us, something that's, based on what would happen, just in writing, if it does touch groundwater, how it's remediated, what happens. We already have that information on the propylene glycol. We don't have it on this. Again, if it comes in contact with aquatic life, it's just a lot of multitude of things. So I'm gonna make a motion to deny today.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on a denial for today? Okay, all in favor of the denial, say aye.
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 Any person for it? So it's unanimous. Okay, so going forward, Mark, this board's going to require more information, especially if you've got toxicologist information. We'd love to see that, those comments that were made by those individuals. And are they, my question, are those toxicologists from the United States or are they from European countries?
I would say that many of them are from European countries, but you certainly could reach out to NSF. They had to review the formulation because it is approved for incidental food contact. But I've sent Jeff Howard much of this information already, the NSF certification, the DTX dossier, the LD50 EPA study. We certainly can send that as well. You would have to be a toxicologist to understand it. I don't even understand half of it in there, but I'm sure there's somebody within the state that could read that for themselves and interpret it.
I appreciate that because now you understand where we're coming from as well. So we have a lot of good questions here today from the board, from different angles here, and I appreciate your time here. And
Hold on one
John,
second, Mr. Chair. Hold on one second.
Sure.
We have Aaron and Vinny that have questions.
I'm sorry. Let's start with Aaron again.
Sorry, just one quick question. Mark, are you aware if Dandelion or any other of the geothermal contractors are using this product yet in other areas? Just want to hear some feedback from them.
Dandelion Energy is waiting. They want to make the switch. Their engineer wants to make the switch, but because they operate in Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts, they would prefer that the three states have given them the approval to do that. They don't want to just operate because New York has gotten approval, which is fine, but they want all three. So they're kind of just waiting on the fence. As I said, because we're relatively new to the US, most of all of the applications that we've sold into DTEX have been for food processing plants, as well as recently a lot of data centers because of the artificial intelligence. There's data centers popping up everywhere. And they typically would use propylene glycol, but they like the idea of using a detoxified ethylene glycol because it's less costly and so forth. Anyway, to your point, no, there haven't been a lot of geothermal installers because we're relatively new to the U.S. market that have approached us, and that's kind of where this came from. We started in New York, then we went to Massachusetts, Connecticut, most recently Wisconsin, and I think that will unfold. And then with the Jeff Heyman, he found out about it through Jeff Howard from your organization. He reached out to me and said, "Oh, I think this is great." And so we began that conversation. So I think this will evolve over, the next year or something. And I think little by little, certain states, I would just say this, the states that are out there regulating geothermal, there's either three categories: one that have very little regulation, two, one that follow federal standards, or three, typically ones that will just call out food grade propylene glycol. So we have found that to be the case all across the U.S. And so as we run into states like the state of Connecticut, we try to approach them, present as much information as we can about the technology and let them make an informed decision. And certainly, so that's what I would say. I can certainly provide as much information as you folks want. And, maybe you could table this until you had a chance to speak with the health and your Department of Environmental Protection Department and see what the next steps are, if any.
Thanks.
Where are you guys with the Department of Energy right now? Where have you gone to? Because obviously the Department of Energy finances a lot of these major geothermal products. Systems, I should say. Where are you guys with the Department of Energy that's kind of involved in this whole technology with geothermal?
We're really, we haven't done really anything with them, to be honest. I mean, like I said, with the geothermal, it's only over the last 5 months that we've had some interest from the industry on the technology. And as you might imagine, it's usually the installers that find out about it, immediately would like to buy it. It's less costly and so forth. But then they start to look at the regulations within their respective state, find out that it's so easy. And so that's where we step in and we say, okay, could you provide, basically the installers are asking us to provide information to the regulatory bodies within the state about the product. And that's kind of how it begins and it evolves. And sometimes it goes faster than, depending on the state. New York went pretty fast, and Massachusetts taken a little bit longer, and Connecticut might take a little bit longer. We don't really have a roadmap, to be honest.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Do we have any other board members with their hands up?
We do. We have Mr. Valenti.
Vinny, please.
Yep. As you're sharing documentation, I think one of the documents that most of the tradesfolk understand are it's like an SDS sheet. I don't even see that here. That's going to get you the LD50, in case folks are wondering. That's the lethal dose it takes to kill half of the test animals. At what level? It's can sometimes be a speculative number, but mutagenicity, environmental things will all be listed on an SDS, and that at least gives us a basic board to start wrapping our minds around what this product is, because all I'm hearing is a description of a blend of ethylene and propylene that is food safe. But if it gets on the food should be destroyed. So, I would start sharing documents that lay people can understand, because as board members, we're expert in very few things, and this is not one of them.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, I've actually sent, Vinny, I have sent Jeff Howard all of that documentation, safety data sheets, product data sheets, and probably the DX dossier, the NSF certification. But I'm happy to make those available to anybody and additional people that would like them as well, certainly.
And again, Mark, I'll just go on to say any information that you have that's additional to what you've sent already, because the board members have been provided with the information that's been shared thus far. Any additional information that you would like me to share, please just forward and I will get that sent out.
Okay, no problem. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I'm specifically asking for things that are not industry generated information. Third-party qualifiers, your NSF data, SDS sheets, things like that are come from a neutral party.
Sure, most definitely. The safety data sheets were all generated by an industrial safety company. We're happy to provide that. The LD50 testing was an EPA study with a third-party lab. So most definitely.
Okay, Mr. Joe, we have no more questions at the moment, so.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks again, Mark. I might be meeting you. Are you going to be up at the New York Geo shows and stuff like that coming up too?
I have to look at my schedule. I may, if I am, I definitely will shoot you an email.
Because I usually go to Albany. I didn't make Manhattan. I go to Massachusetts, up in Boston last year. So I like to keep my head involved in this new industry coming out there. So, but I appreciate your time today, and have a good day.
You too. You're welcome. Thank you again.
Thank you. Great. Next on the agenda is new business. We have, I believe, Amanda Perkins. Is she with us today?
I'm here.
Great. Could you introduce yourself for us, please, and tell us a little bit about why you're here today?
Sure, happy to do so. Good morning, and thank you for having us. I say us as I have my colleague Alessia Frasco also on the call with us. She is new to our Radon program here at the Department of Public Health. That's a position that I previously held until I moved into the position as coordinator of our indoor environments unit. And I am here today, I'm going to share my screen in a moment if that's all right, to do a quick little presentation about national certification in radon mitigation and how that ties together with plumbing.
Amanda, and can we get, if you, for the record, I won't be able to see this slideshow, unfortunately. Yeah. But if you could try to send it to me at some point, I'd like to review it.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm going to be missing that. It's kind of a bummer. And the for the record, we would like to have, so for the minutes of the meeting, so Rochelle could get the information from your constituent that you're working with there in the meeting, so we can have her in the minutes as well. Give her a little credit there.
Sure. Yes, I did send the slides to the
agenda as well. Sorry, Amanda.
Yeah, the presentation was provided to everybody already, so it's in the link with all the meeting documents already.
Under another email address or something. Sorry about that. But anyhow, we can go ahead and you
sure.
You can start, Amanda. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so national certification in radon mitigation. We might fly through this kind of quickly. It's back of the hand for me. Feel free to drop questions, raise your hand, and we'll get to them all. So the Department of Public Health has a statute that requires the radon program to maintain, excuse me, a list of companies or individuals that are included in current lists of national radon proficiency programs. Tangential to this is that per the Department of Consumer Protection, radon mitigation companies must utilize licensed electricians, plumbers, salespersons, and other professionals for all applicable components of the work rendered. You have to excuse me. You have influenza going around the house, and I think I've unfortunately picked it up, so. Okay, so this statute, Connecticut General Statute, Section 20-420, is a Department of Consumer Protection statute that states that no certificate shall be given to any person who holds himself or herself out to be a contractor that performs radon mitigation unless such contractor provides evidence satisfactory to the commissioner that the contractor is certified as a radon mitigator by the National Radon Safety Board or the National Environmental Health Association. Worth noting, as this statute's a little older, that the National Environmental Health Association has been replaced by the National Radon Proficiency Program. So an overview of radon mitigation professionals who perform radon services in Connecticut. Under the Connecticut Home Improvement Act, an individual or business is required to register with the Department of Consumer Protection if they are contracting with a consumer to perform work on a residential property. I'm sure none of that is news to you. Individuals who enter contracts with Connecticut consumers to perform radon mitigation must be registered as home improvement contractors with DCP. Any other individual who solicits and procures business for the company must be registered as a salesperson with DCP. And here's where we get into how it relates to you guys. Individuals who perform radon mitigation for water require a DCP plumbing and piping contractor license. A HIC registration is not required if the licensee has a P1, P3, or J1 plumbing contractor and only performs radon mitigation for water, meaning they're not doing radon mitigation for air. Companies offering to perform radon mitigation in Connecticut for air and/or water must also employ an individual who is nationally certified in radon mitigation by the National Radon Proficiency Program, NRPP, or the National Radon Safety Board, NRSB. Contractors performing mitigation are working under the direction of the nationally certified individual. So a quick overview, radon in water. If an individual has tested their private well and has confirmed their radon in water level to be 5,000 picocuries per liter or higher, a picocurie per liter being a measure of radioactivity, and the 5,000 is the Department of Public Health's established guideline, recommended guideline. There's no requirement to mitigate. But based on the results, the average results of the two water samples, if it's 5,000 or higher, we recommend that the home be fixed. So there's two options used to reduce radon levels in water. One is a GAC system, the other is aeration. The aeration system is the only effective system for radon in water levels at or above 10,000 picocuries per liter. We have a handy dandy radon in your well water fact sheet that provides additional guidance on radon in private well water. So, how to become a qualified radon mitigation professional in Connecticut? It's essentially a 4-step process, pretty straightforward. Step 1 is attending and successfully completing a radon mitigation course. These are generally 3-day courses approved by the National Radon Certification Agencies, NRPP or NRSB. However, there's a caveat. Most radon mitigation courses have a prerequisite of the successful completion of a radon measurement course prior, right? So that's about a 2-day course. So essentially 1 week, 5 days, and both of these certifications could be completed. Step 2, pass an exam. So completing the course, and then you sit for a national certification exam through NRPP or NRSB, which is typically offered at the end of the course. There is an additional fee required to sit for that exam. The 3rd step is to apply to NRPP or NRSB to become nationally certified. So the individual submits a membership application to one of the 2 certifying agencies to become nationally certified, radon measurement or radon mitigation, whatever they're going for, and to check the websites. This was pulled from our fact sheet about how to become a qualified radon mitigation professional. So the links referenced on this slide are on our website. But for additional information, the agencies are fairly similar. They have some nuanced differences about their process, especially regarding continuing education requirements. As a quick note, so far as I'm aware, NRPP only allows an individual to use a continuing education course once ever, whereas NRSB will allow an individual to use a continuing education course multiple times, but only once within a recertification period. So after that, individuals would be issued their NRPP or NRSB card with a National Radon Mitigation Certification number. And then those individuals would also be listed on the respective website under the Radon Mitigation Professionals search for the state of Connecticut. And step 4, as we touched on earlier, is applying to the Department of Superconductor Protection for the home improvement contractor registration if warranted. So this goes back to what we mentioned earlier about a P1, P3, or J1 not needing the HIC if they're only doing radon and water mitigation. That's my contact information up on the slide, if you can see them, as well as Alessia's. I'm sure there's a few questions. I can also let you know that our radon program here is not regulatory. We operate off of some statutes that exist in other agencies, like Department of Consumer Protection. State Department of Education has one as well, requiring radon testing in schools. Trying to think if there's anything else I might have omitted throughout the slides so far. But please, if there's any questions, fire away.
Thank you. And just, if I could just thank you, Amanda, for that. And
Sure.
Just for the record, so the board members know, Amanda had reached out and was inquiring if we were maintaining these certificates for our licensees that are installing water filtration. And I was not even aware of this requirement personally. When she informed me of the statute within DPH, that's why I had this added to the agenda so that it could be brought up today and discussed. My thoughts were so that we could educate the licensees, that we look to add this to the CE curriculum for the upcoming CEs, so that we can educate the individuals that are out there installing the water filtration. Because as the board members know, the P1s, the P3s, the J1s, and the journey persons that work for those contractors can be out doing other work and then doing some radon filtration on other days. So if we educate them, if they do desire to dabble in this, then this is where they should go. And Mr. Chair, I'm just going to let you know that Vinny Valenti has his hand up.
Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but I'd like to make a motion to include this information in the next continuing education cycle.
Motion, right, Vinny?
Say again, brother?
You make a motion, Vinny, on that?
I'd make a motion that this information just presented on the radon mitigation be included in the next cycle of the continuing education for plumbers.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that?
I could second that.
And we
Do
do
we
have,
have any further, I'm sorry, do we have any further discussion?
we have Aaron Nachbar.
Mr. Nachbar, please.
I'm sorry. So suddenly the state of Connecticut Health Department has discovered that they have a requirement for those of us that have been installing this treatment under our J licenses for years and years. These treatment methods are used for other contaminants, but now we need a certificate for the equipment that we've been installing for years. We're not hanging out a shingle as radon mitigation contractors. It's generally part of an installation. In our case, we drill a well, we put a pump in, we put filtration in, and if that filtration needs to cover a high radon issue in drinking water, we will include that as part of our installation. But again, the state of Connecticut doesn't regulate the treatment of private water. So I'm not sure how this has any effect on a J and a P license. I'm confused. We have our, I don't know. I'm just confused with it.
So if I can clarify real quick, it has been in place for some time and it's a Department of Consumer Protection statute. So we help support, we help provide the information for how to become a certified contractor. We maintain these lists on our website of individuals who are qualified to perform the work per the requirements set forth in 2420. If John wants to jump in, I know we've had some conversations at length.
Yep, and again, Aaron, this information was just brought to my attention on the certificate requirement. As you state, water filtration is a scope of work which can be performed from the licensing standpoint. So, with that being stated, yes, as a licensee, properly licensed licensee, P1, P3, J1, you can install water filtration as it is within the scope. It's that one piece with the radon that ties back to the certification requirement through DPH. So, yeah, it's
Again, it's not a regulated contaminant. The state of Connecticut has not stepped up and said, we require you to treat radon in water if it's above a certain level. Yes, we all understand, we can read the EPA suggestion. So we need to spend $1,000 or so with an outside party that probably lobbied for this to be forced down people's throats so they could get business, because this is not an inexpensive course. And it's going to be 3 days of listening to sub-slab ventilation chat and maybe about 15 minutes on how to aerate water properly and vent it. That was all. I'm not happy with it. That's all.
Thank you, Aaron. Do we have any other hands up for questions?
we do not.
Okay. Amanda, thank you for attending today.
Of
But
course,
you know
thanks
what?
for having
We
me.
have a motion on, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We had discussion.
Hold on 1 second there, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. We have Vinnie Valenti.
Okay. Vinnie has a,
Yeah, I apologize. I want to recognize Aaron's concerns. For me, it's already in statute. And you know, the recommendations by the DPH to what to do when certain levels of radon are there. It's already in statute, we're not adding anything. We're just promulgating the information when we do the continuing ed. So if
Yeah.
it's,
I did read the statute. I saw it, Vinny. I know it's there. It's never been mentioned in the criteria of a J or a P license.
no, there's a lot of things we're required to do that are, you know, sometimes we find out through different sources. We're affected by many other agencies, like the discussion before. Public health and DEEP should weigh in before we make a decision. But this is just putting the information out. There's a lot of things in the continuing ed I don't agree with, and not using primer on small bore pipe, I think is not a great idea, but we still have to put the information out.
I respect that, Vinny. Appreciate it.
okay, so we still have a motion, Vinnie, by you and a second and a further discussion been made do you still want to proceed to put this in this following year's continuing education package?
I'm in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that unanimous? Anybody say no? Okay, great. We'll add that to the curriculum. Amanda will be in touch to get all the appropriate information from all those agencies that you discussed.
Sure.
And there'll be further discussion at the board levels too here in reference to that. We appreciate your time today.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
your
Chairman,
work with you.
Ms.
Chairman, I
Sheffy
think Melissa
has-
had a question. Her hand is raised. Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thanks. I just want to confirm you asked for this information to be distributed. So Amanda, can you please send it out to us?
It was her presentation, Melissa, was part of the agenda, but I could forward that to
Oh,
you if you need it.
I guess I missed that link. I have the link up. Nope, I'm good then. If it's
I
in
know
the link,
The
It's in
motion
the,
is,
it's in the
is
meeting.
over.
The latest one, Melissa.
Unless otherwise modified, for us, we'll just drop in those 6 PowerPoint slides and present them as is, because I don't know enough to modify them. It just, here's the information, do what you will with it.
Okay, I see it. Sorry, thanks.
That's okay. And we have Mr. Nachbar.
Since this is in statute, what is the penalty for non-compliance?
Amanda, there was no enforcement on your end, correct?
On our end, no, that would be with you guys if and what you choose to do or can do.
Just so I can share this with my happy membership.
Yeah, I think we should have further discussion on that. So we could have a non-quorum session on that to discuss what we've learned today.
Does anybody else have any questions? We have
Do
any,
you need a motion to make the non-quorum, to have the non-quorum, or we could just verbally
No,
do
we
it?
could have a non-quorum discussion on that.
Okay.
Melissa, you have a question, or you're good? Okay. No, we're all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Amanda.
so much for attending. Leave already?
No, she's here. Amanda, thank you for attending, was relayed.
Thank you. Yeah, reach out anytime.
All right. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Is there anything else we want to add to the list today? Does anybody have any information they want to bring to the board today, from the board?
There are 3 applications to review still.
We don't have those applications.
All right. Rochelle, who's the first applicant on the agenda?
First up is Dylan Waitkis.
Do the other board members have the applications within their package?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I guess, Mr. Chair, if you want to start with Dylan, he's first up.
What's Dylan's last name, please?
I might be
Waitkis.
mispronouncing it. Waitkis. Waitkus.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members.
Good
I'm
morning.
here, I attended last meeting in October with my application for equivalent experience and training. It was requested to provide more backup to my certificate or my credential in Framingham, Massachusetts with the P6 plumbing equivalency.
Okay. And what have you provided us today, Dylan, to back that up?
I provided you the application that was, that they require a letter from the town of Framingham noting that I was a approved drain layer licensed in that town, as well as their standards, for water, sewer, and storm systems.
Okay, and you were applying for a P6, correct?
That is correct. I believe the documentation I provided is equivalent to the 2,000 hours of the apprenticeship, and I have taken all the required classes and got that approved through the Connecticut training school.
Okay. All right. Does the board members, do we have anybody's hands up for questions for Mr. Waitkis?
Jay Moore.
Jay Moore, please.
Jay, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So one of your attachments is to become a licensed drain layer. So do you have a copy of this license that is given in Framingham? I know we discussed this. I vaguely remember the conversation last time. Is there a physical license?
The
From
letter is
Framingham?
what they provide at a request. It's not a statewide, it's
It's a
in
county, I
Mass-
understand.
Massachusetts, it's town by town, so it's not as, I'm gonna say, sophisticated as a state license.
So it's not a physical piece of paper that says I'm qualified to do this. It's just a letter.
Yes, the town has it on record. There's 2 inspectors there. We met with inspectors. We had to sit in a class.
Okay, I mean,
It was held for a 2-year period of time. While we had a couple jobs up in that area, we are no longer working in that area.
do you know this to be factual, John, that there's no actual license? It's just a letter stating that? I mean, I'm just happening to be reading to become a licensed drain layer application. And it says licenses are currently valid until March 31st, 2025. So I don't understand how that letter would have a timestamp on it, unless it's go by date. They send you a letter every time you recertify, or I'm a little confused by how when they have a scope with a license and it has an expiration date, that only a letter is what's necessary to do it. So your letter is, how long is it valid for? I mean, I don't understand.
It's valid for a 2-year period of time. It expires in May of every year. So if you got it this year, it would be valid for 25 and 20, and it would expire in May of 26.
And they send this letter to you yearly, every 2 years, they send you a letter as the license holder?
They send you a letter as a request. When you go to other town districts, they ask for reference letters. In Massachusetts, they don't ask for a license. They don't have a physical license.
And we have Mr. Valenti, followed by Peter Alfieri.
Thank you.
Hey, the letter you have is for the city of Framingham only?
Correct. When you get into the scope of a P6 and P7 license, it is diverted from the state level to the town and districts of the Water Sewer Authority.
Okay, now, I seen you've done a lot of the construction management program at Central, and congrats to you for that. Well done. But what I don't see are like courses from the VOTEC system or IMTI on the P6 scope of work here in Connecticut,
When I submitted my
PWB and
original,
things like that.
when I submitted my original application, I had a email backup from the CT Connecticut Technical High School schools telling which classes of the central classes transferred over to the equivalents to the P6, and the missing classes, I believe there were 2 of them that I took at Penn Foster's over last year.
Right.
And
Do you
completed
have,
those.
you have that transcript?
Yes, I should have a copy of that with the license or the
I don't see
application.
it in your application here. I don't see it in the information we have. I see the letter from Framingham, your application to sit for the test. Now, are you
Got
working in
Central
Connecticut?
Connecticut, Vin. He has some stuff from Central Connecticut.
Yeah,
that
no,
you
that's a
listen.
construction management program, and some of
yeah.
that might have crossed over. And he said he had a few to fill in that he did take with Penn Foster online. But I'm gonna, go with you. You've done your educational requirement and you presented that to DCP, and they can evaluate that. Do you work in the state of Connecticut, your company?
The company I work for works both in the state of Connecticut and Massachusetts.
And do they have a licensed drain layer? They must have a contractor license, right?
They have a contractor license and several P7 license holders in the state of Connecticut.
Is yours a P7 or P5? Or John can verify that for the contractor level.
I'm not too sure who his contractor record is. And just for clarification, Mr. Valenti, his application came in and was reviewed by the application review working group, and he did get a comparative analysis. His education, he did substantiate, is complete. When it came before the board at the last meeting, the question was his on-the-job training, which, because he received that additional training out of state for equivalency, that's why he's providing the letter from Framingham to substantiate that he has equivalent out-of-state experience, having held that credential.
Right. So yeah, I'm good with that. School's all done. Good. And he's done a heck of a lot more school, working towards a bachelor's, it looks like. But why his contractor didn't register him as an apprentice while he was here working in Connecticut prior is my question. And why that couldn't be done, a 2,000-hour program. He could probably already have his license in pocket if they'd done the right thing previously.
I'm working through the process now to get my company approved as a apprentice company. There are some questions on certain contracts that have apprentice hours that have been indicated that they do not have an apprenticeship program, as they already have license holders that came through to the company with their license. So I'm trying to come through the board, because I did the work in Massachusetts, trying to better myself and get the license for myself.
Right. Well, that's the idea. Yeah, you have licensed folks, and you need to, plan for succession and bring up new folks in the proper manner, which is to become an apprenticeship sponsor. And I think your company's kind of dropping the ball here, and it's putting you at a great disadvantage. I get it, but there is a program, and they should contact DOL and get a bona fide apprenticeship program for you to enter.
I am working on that now with the higher up of my company to get that program in place for myself, if required, or future employees who are looking to go down this route as well.
Well, if they're working in Connecticut today or the future, and they're not licensed or registered as apprentices, I think it's in your company's best interest to get copacetic.
Mr. Weikes, how long have you been asking your employer here in the state of Connecticut to create an apprenticeship program?
I started after the last meeting. They have sent some emails to some state certifications that are separate of the apprenticeship program, where they ask if you have apprenticeship programs or not. It was identified that the company does not have an apprenticeship program. They're working through to make sure that they don't cross any lines before getting the apprenticeship program with their current contracts and certifications that they have. My understanding is that my understanding is that I was able to apply with my experience in Mass through the Connecticut state regs, and that this board would review that as hours between the letter from my company as well as the letter from Framingham saying that evidence that I've worked in that town.
Where's your company based out of?
Middletown. Or Middlefield, sorry.
Middlefield, okay. And they've been around since 1971?
Yes.
Okay.
It started as a smaller company, mom and pop type company, and they are growing currently.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the dates and stuff and wondering why they've never, when they've done the done what's the like Mr. Valenti pointed out, why they've never followed an apprenticeship program. Seems as though they've been doing this work for quite some time.
A lot of the license holders here have had their license before it was required in Connecticut for this work.
Right.
I believe in 1990 it was required for this.
Yeah, well, they've been around since 71, so. I don't know. I don't know what to do. What's the rest of the board think?
Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Wakis?
No, but I'll also notice too, none of the documentation spells out 1 hour work. The Framingham letter says his company recently worked and performed satisfactory work. And there is a process for equivalency, which I don't see him as having met. So my motion would be to deny. I see Pete has his hand up, though. I'll defer.
Hey, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having a hard time just accepting this letter that his company worked in that town as the requirement for the apprenticeship OJT hours. I saw that he had the schooling, and John, thank you for answering my question. But the OJT hours, there's no record of OJT hours, and that letter to me didn't mean anything. It just said the company did a great job. Good, I'm glad for them. But it didn't say, I don't think it has enough for me to accept either. I would have to deny.
I believe I also have a letter from my company saying that I've met the hours, which is what the website has noted that is required for review. For equivalency is a certified letter from your company noting the hours. I was hoping not to be penalized for the lack of apprenticeship of the company in this license.
Well, we
Mr.
have to
Chair-
stay,
Oh, sorry.
we
Sorry,
have to
Peter.
stay the same on everybody. The way I look at it, we can't make exception on one person, and everybody is going to be entitled to that exception. And I'm having a hard time accepting that letter.
Yeah, Mr. Moore has his hand up.
Yeah. As I go back through to become a licensed drain layer, right? It says you need a valid insurance certificate and an annual $25,000 serenity bond. You have to go to classes, training sessions, and then all attendees are required to take and receive a passing score on an exam. And then you have a $400 fee. Do you have the exam results? Do you have a receipt for the $400? Do you have anything that is pertinent on this licensed drain layer application that would state that you have followed the protocol that is necessary, besides this one letter that no one really knows what it means? On the application,
the letter,
you tell me there's no design, there's no specific license, it's a letter, but there is certain things that could be traced back to it that state, I have done this, I've done the process. It's highlighted, a valid insurance certificate. Person must list a drain layer on the drain layer's license. Designated persons must be listed on the drain layer's license, and a copy of the valid Massachusetts hosting license must be approved. I can't, unless I call the state of Massachusetts, I can't buy onto that, man.
the letter from Framingham does note that the company, as well as myself, and it lists my name there as proof. I can get you a copy of the check number. I'm not sure if I have the exact copy. I'm sure the company has the check somewhere in a file. I could get you that information.
How about your scores on the exam that I mean, I don't know.
It was a written exam that was handed in. We went to the town water facility, sat in a classroom. They talked about their standards and requirements for their district. And then they gave us a test at the end of that day, and they took the test, and from there we were we were approved to pull the permit
All
for
right.
the
So let me
job.
ask you this question. So I'm looking at this link you gave for the become a licensed drain layer. To the left corner it says current list of licensed drain layers PDF. If I go to this website and I click that, am I going to find your name?
No, because it's listed by company, and then you also have the option to not be listed. We had the option not to be listed because we're not a local contractor wanting to get phone calls from homeowners to do the work.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we had Vinny, you still have a question or are you good?
Just kind of following Jay, do you have a copy of your license, your actual license?
There is not a copy of the license. The letter is the proof from the town that they provide from you on request.
The letter just says you and your company work there, but whether, if you want to hide your public address, that's fine, but you should have, do you have some, like a license, a piece of paper saying you're licensed to do this?
The letter from the town saying that the company and myself held the license is all they would provide me, and that's all they have.
Miss Sheppy has a question.
So a couple things. I hope what you're hearing, Dylan, is that we just need more information. I know Zanellis, it's a good company, and I like the fact that you're trying to do what you need to do to make sure that you're abiding by the law. So the letter does not say that you're licensed or you're certified. It says that you did work. So you probably could get all this information, like you said, the receipt, the check, some sort of test score from your taking the handwritten test. But to the board's point, we have to uphold the law and hold everyone to the same standards. So while I applaud you and Zanellis for trying to do the right thing, we just need more information. So I hope that's what you're hearing. And I think that's what the board's saying. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone.
No, he needs to
correct,
provide the
Melissa,
things
thank
that, yeah, you're 100%
That's it.
correct.
Yeah, the letter's dated 2023. Do you currently hold a license anywhere? Dylan?
I currently do not, but I can go back to Framingham and renew that license without an issue. We currently are no longer working up there due to the location of that area. So we did not renew the license.
All right, well, in the Commonwealth, is it town by town, the drain laying? Do they have a state certificate?
It's all town by town.
right.
Some towns don't require anything, just require the mass hoisting license, which I do hold. There was another town that I did do work up there. They would not provide me with a letter. They would provide me with a number to provide for a reference. They do up there, they do call from town to town for references.
Hmm.
And
All right.
a lot of the
I would-
inspectors up there know each other from the local areas.
Yeah, I mean, I would do a lot more homework and try to get something saying that you have been licensed and what minimum requirements you met. But ultimately, what the point is, this company's in Connecticut for 50 years. They know better. All right. Everyone knows better. And this is what's required. And it would have been a lot easier just for them to set up a program and register people. It's a good thing to do. It's a great way to organize the business and keep people coming up. I know you're a hard worker. Your education is super important to you. I can see all of this. But we all got to stay in the same guidelines, and we couldn't approve you with what we're looking at in front of us now. And
Is there any other documentations that would be what you require to review to consider it equivalent hours? I mean, I can definitely certainly go back in our files and grab the check for the application. I can,
Yeah, but is that for you or your company though? That's what I don't understand. Like, what'd you do? One job up in Framingham? I mean, you're not based out of there, so like, how long did you work out in Framingham?
it was over a 2-year period in a shopping center. It was a couple different buildings that we did right next to the Framingham Logan Express in that large shopping center. We
So your
installed.
company went out there, you did one strip mall and you got registered up there as a drain layer.
And then there was another job up in Bedford, Mass that we've done. We were up in Massachusetts for about 3 years total.
See, my issue is your company's been here for this long and they've never done the right thing, and now unfortunately you're taking the hit for what they haven't done right. That's the problem.
And I just want to
I'm
acknowledge,
gonna make a motion to deny.
Jay, hold on 1 second if you don't mind. We have Aaron Knockbar that had his hand up.
Aaron,
Didn't the last time we discussed this, a condition for Mr. Waitkus was that he would get registered as an apprentice and then come back with the hours? And
Possibility, Aaron.
and then we could reassess that. I don't know if I remember correctly. They still don't have an apprenticeship program?
They are working through it now to become a registered apprentice. There was some questions on certain certifications with the state that requires identifying whether or not you have an apprenticeship program and what would registering with an apprenticeship program do with those certifications.
But you have P7, P7's in the employ of Zanellis Corporation.
Correct. They are
So-
employed and they perform the scope of work of the P7 like holders.
Should be really easy if you have
Should
P7.
be very simple. Yeah, if you've got guys with the P7, and at least every minute that you're working now is counting, and then when you come before us, you say, "Hey, I'm in the program. Here's my back hours from Framingham, but I'm in." I mean, this has been when was this? This was a year ago? I'm sorry, I don't remember.
This was reviewed at the last meeting in October.
Okay, it seems like longer. I apologize. And maybe they should get somebody else to notarize the letter other than a company employee. I know we do that so that it doesn't look like a conflict of interest.
should this be sent over to the enforcement division for a letter to the company and its principals to put together a registration program with the Department of Labor?
If that's what the board would like, we can make that referral.
I mean, they're
Around with this today?
Pam is no longer on the meeting. If you want to ask, Ms. Hamill did join the meeting.
So, how are you?
She might be,
I'm happy-
she's
I'm
on
happy
mute there.
I'm happy to make a motion that says we suggest that enforcement investigate why Zanellis doesn't have an apprenticeship program. Is that the proper wording?
That would work.
Because
Aaron,
I'll
do we
second
have a
that.
second?
Peter
second
seconded that.
I'll first second the motion. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor of requiring Zanellis Construction, Middletown, Connecticut, to put together a apprenticeship program with the Department of Labor, say aye.
Aye.
And
Didn't we
part of
have
that motion
I'm
also
opposed,
is to
Bob.
have enforcement write a letter to the company.
I'm abstaining because there's no reason we should have to vote for people to follow the law that's already on the books.
Thank you, Vinnie.
And Ms. Sheffy, you had a comment? I don't know if that was heard.
I retract that. I agree with Vinny.
Okay.
So, since we have a vote, we have 2 abstentions. All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstain.
Abstain? Or no?
Abstained is
Yeah.
Vinny and Melissa. Yep.
We, does it pass based on the number of, people at our meeting? I believe it does, correct? It passes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just interject for 1 second, I just want to note the time is 10:42 right now. We did have hearings scheduled for 10:30 today. I don't believe any of our individuals had shown up, but we have Attorney Fernandez here. I would just ask that if we could ask Ms. Fernandez if we should join the hearings at this moment, or is that going to be default?
I don't have any notice of anyone showing so far, so I do expect defaults. If Rochelle could confirm that at this point, please.
Yeah, I don't see anybody. Somebody did call in. There's a phone number. I'm not sure if they're.
Yes,
one
I'm
of the
Bob
attendees.
Reith. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so we have one individual here. Ms. Fernandez, should we look to adjourn this meeting so we can get onto the hearings, or can I don't know where we fall with the agenda, Rochelle, right now? Is it just 2 more applicants?
Yeah, there's 2 more
I
applicants.
have one question if I can ask it. If I were to be signed up for the apprenticeship program and then come back to the board, would it be considered to be reviewed? And is there any required documentations besides the check, or if any, I'll reach back out to the town to see if I can get any more information about the test?
Done by the Department of Labor, and they register you as an apprentice for the P6 category. At the completion of your time, you've got your classroom-related instruction. You need your on-the-job training signed off by your employer with the Department of Labor. You will be then giving a completion letter to be sent then to the Department of Consumer Protection with your application license fee to take the test.
Okay, so there would be no ability to get any experience from my work outside the state reviewed towards this license.
I don't think that's true. But once you're in the apprentice program, and then we go back over and review what you come up with, if you get, like Vinny and Jay spoke about, you get some more supporting documentation from Massachusetts, whatever you can get, and maybe hours that you're on the job up there. If you got time tickets, that can all be reviewed. But you need to be in the apprentice program.
I will, I'll work at trying to get that information together.
And then we can say you're moving forward. You've done your education. You're moving forward. Zanellis is helping you get to your goal.
If we approved you today, sir, all we're doing is telling Zanellis it's not a problem. That's the unfortunate thing. And like I said earlier, you're getting caught in between a problem that Zanellis has not done what they're supposed to do, and you're an employee of them. So if we go ahead and grant you this license, we're just telling Zanellis that it's okay. They don't have to start a bona fide apprenticeship program. All the other companies in the state of Connecticut that do this, you know, they do the right thing. And we can't just say, you know, Zanellis, you're good. You're all right. You could just send your guys in to apply and we'll let it go. That's not how we operate, and we can't do that. Would I love to give you the license? I don't want to deny anybody a license. It's your livelihood. I get it. But unfortunately, you're caught in a situation where the company has been in business since 71. They have P7s on staff. They do the work. They must be somewhere in Connecticut working on a strip mall or a condo complex or something somewhere. And they have people there that are working alongside the P7s that are not registered.
And it's a disservice to the other apprentices that are doing the right thing. They
Now
are
it's
registered,
10:46
collecting their
a.m.
hours.
Make a motion to move on.
I'm saying that is the process for defaulting a respondent at a DCP hearing is 15 minutes after the required time. So if we had a meeting at 10:30 with individuals that did not show up, it's 10:47 now. Just want to make a note of that. Continue the meeting.
So
Move on.
I'm sorry, if I may, did I hear Mr. Rith say that he's present? Is that correct?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. So just to
They
clarify,
said
On time.
10:30.
Attorney Fernandez, he is on time.
correct, right. I just wanted to make it clear that he's here.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Watkins is excused. He can sign off if he'd like.
Thank you for your time.
Hold on one second there. Ms. Sheffy has her hand up. Melissa.
Well, I'm just confused. Are we going to go on with the hearings? Or are we going to finish? I see Mr. Pelletier's on. So are we going to finish the meeting or are we going to, because he's been on this whole time?
I would leave it up to the board and Ms. Fernandez. We have one individual. We had 3 hearings for today. We have one individual that is here for the hearing. We have 2 applications that still need to be heard. So I think if those, if the board is up to it, we can hear the last 2 applications before moving into the hearing.
Oh, I didn't know. If they've been on, they deserve the opportunity. You're right, Melissa. My apologies. I didn't see that.
Apology
Right.
accepted, Jay.
Rochelle, who is the next individual up on the agenda for application review?
Next up is John Pelletier, but I don't know. Cynthia, is that okay for us to finish up with the applications and then move on to the hearing, or?
So I do think it's in the board's discretion. I just want to be clear to give Mr. Rith the opportunity to state that he has the time to wait a little longer.
Well, I have the flu and I can't really breathe and I have a fever. I can hang in there if you like.
Can you place it on hold and until, I'm not sure how much
Well, I
time you
can-
guys need.
Can you hang in there for 15, 20 minutes at the most?
Yeah, I can listen to what's going on. Not a problem.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Okay, let's move on with the next applicant, please, so we can move the meeting ahead.
All right, so we have John Pelletier as the next individual up.
Good morning. I don't want to waste a lot of your time because I know that this meeting is going longer than expected. Basically, I'm just a self-employed construction worker looking to get my P7, and I do not know the best route to go through the apprenticeship program. I have been working under P1 for a long time, doing subsurface sewer work. And I did a lot of septic systems with my father, who's been licensed in septics for 20 plus years. So I know there's a way to get through things, but I just wanted to sit through the meeting and see what the best route would be for a self-employed individual with no apprenticeship program available. So I have to hire a P7.
Yeah, that's an option. A hire P7. You said you've been working under a P1?
Yeah, my subcontractor, P1.
So it has to be a full-time employee.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you got to have a P7. You got to have a contractor's license, work under him.
Okay.
Register
so I
yourself
hire
under.
somebody,
Yep.
basically.
It's the easiest way to do it. Hire a guy.
All
You
right.
should have a licensed guy on staff anyway if you're doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
So
We're small potatoes.
hire a P7, put him on.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pelletier. Appreciate your
Have a good
patience.
one.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion for?
I make a motion to deny.
Seconded.
Discussion. No discussion. All in favor of denial for John Pelletier for a P1, say aye.
Aye.
P7.
Aye.
P7.
P7.
And for clarification, yes,
Oh,
P7.
sorry. P7.
Right, and Rochelle, who's the next applicant? I'm sorry.
Thomas Graham.
All right, we have Mr. Graham on. Do we have Thomas Graham? All right.
He was on.
It is the final one, yes, and it does not appear that he's on. I did see his name before, but I don't see him in the meeting anymore. So,
Unfortunately,
This one
probably
looks
listen
like
to him.
it's similar to the last one, though. If you look at
Exactly.
his correspondence, so.
Yep. He
I
probably
make a
just
motion to
assumed.
deny.
Yep. He probably just assumed it wasn't going to work out for him. Logged
Right.
off.
did you just make a
second-
motion, Melissa?
I made a motion to deny.
I second Melissa's motion.
Very good. All right, I think that concludes our agenda, right? Right, Rochelle?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
You
we
want to
just
take
need
a vote on that motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good job, Benny.
Thank you, Benny. I think we just need one more motion for this meeting and then we can move on to the next. All right.
What are we missing?
Yeah, I think if we just close the meeting and then we can start the hearing.
Motion to
Correct.
adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Great. 5-minute recess, come back at
Tinkle break.
All right.
10:58.